Ethan Gallagher stood at the viewport of the research vessel Horizon, watching stars blur past. After 5 years exploring deep space, little surprised him anymore. But this mission felt different. Approaching uncharted planet, Xenobiology team report to Bay 3, announced Captain Harris over the comms. Ethan grabbed his field kit and hurried down the corridor. He bumped into Dr. Samantha Wright, the team's senior researcher. "Ready for another barren rock with some bacteria?" she asked, her voice tinged with boredom. "The preliminary scans showed complex biosignatures," Ethan replied. "Could be interesting." Samantha rolled her eyes. "That's what they always say." In the shuttle bay, 4 other scientists waited as Chief Officer Paul Garcia briefed them. "Standard protocol. No unnecessary risks. Collect samples, document findings, return before nightfall. The atmosphere is breathable, but wear filtration masks as precaution." The shuttle descended through wispy clouds, revealing a landscape of purple-tinged vegetation and crystalline formations that reflected the light of the system's binary stars. They landed in a clearing surrounded by towering tree-like structures. "Ratings show multiple large life forms within a 2-kilometer radius," said Olivia Martinez, monitoring the scanner. "Moving fast. Probably just this planet's version of deer," Paul said dismissively. "Let's split into pairs and establish a perimeter. Ethan, you're with me." They ventured into the dense foliage, collecting samples of the strange plants. Ethan marveled at the complex ecosystem. The vegetation seemed to respond to their presence, subtly shifting away from touch. "I've never seen plant structures like these," Ethan said, carefully taking a cutting. "They almost behave like..." A deafening shriek cut through the air. Everyone froze. "What was that?" Paul whispered, reaching for his sidearm. Before Ethan could answer, their comms crackled. "Base team to ground crew. Return immediately. We're detecting Vexar signatures." Paul's face went pale. "Vexar? Here, that's impossible." Even Ethan felt his blood run cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vexar, apex predators that had decimated 3 colonial outposts. Descriptions varied, but all agreed they were lethal and merciless. "Move now," Paul ordered, already running back toward the shuttle. Ethan followed, but a strange crystalline formation caught his eye. He paused for just a moment, one moment too long. The ground beneath him gave way, sending him tumbling down a steep ravine. He landed hard, his comm unit shattering on impact. "Paul," he shouted, but got no response. The dense canopy above had already closed, hiding him from view. Ethan checked his equipment. His scanner still worked, showing the team retreating rapidly. He couldn't blame them. Vexar presence meant immediate evacuation protocols. A rustling sound came from behind a cluster of crystal formations. Ethan slowly turned. A creature emerged that matched no Vexar description he'd studied. It stood nearly 2 meters tall, with iridescent scales and 6 limbs that ended in what looked like crystalline claws. Its head housed 4 glowing eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and what appeared to be sensory tendrils framed its face. Most striking was the wound along its side, a clean laser cut that oozed bioluminescent fluid. The creature hissed, revealing rows of translucent teeth. Every instinct told Ethan to run or fight, but something in the creature's movements seemed hesitant, almost pained. Instead of backing away, Ethan slowly set down his weapon. He remembered his training. Most species responded to threat displays with aggression. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, knowing the creature couldn't understand his words but might respond to his tone. The Vexar tilted its head, its front limbs lowering slightly. Ethan slowly removed his sample kit and took out a medical patch. With deliberate movements, he placed it on the ground and pushed it toward the creature. The Vexar looked at the offering, then back at Ethan. After a tense moment, it reached out one limb and grasped the patch, examining it with unexpected dexterity. To Ethan's astonishment, the creature applied the patch to its wound. an action that suggested intelligence far beyond what anyone had attributed to the Vexar. "You understand," Ethan whispered, amazement replacing fear. The Vexar's eyes pulsed with changing light patterns. It wasn't attacking. It was communicating. Ethan spent a tense night hidden in the ravine with the injured Vexar. By morning, the creature's wound looked better, and it had not made any aggressive moves toward him. The Horizon's emergency protocols meant they would send a rescue team after 24 hours. Ethan needed to establish some form of communication before then. He pointed to himself. "Ethan." Then he gestured to the creature. The Vexar made a sound like crystals chiming together. Ethan tried to repeat it, but failed miserably. The creature's head tendrils rippled in what seemed like amusement. "I'll call you Nova," Ethan said, noting the star-like patterns on its scales. His scanner beeped, detecting the approach of a shuttle. Nova immediately tensed, its body shifting to a defensive posture. "They're my people," Ethan explained, though he knew Nova couldn't understand. "But I don't think they'll be friendly to you." The rescue shuttle landed at the top of the ravine. Through the trees, Ethan saw Commander Lisa Brooks leading a team in full combat gear. "Gallagher, report," she called down. "I'm here," Ethan shouted back. "I'm unharmed. Stay put. We detected Vexar signatures in your vicinity." Ethan looked at Nova, who was backing away, sensing danger. He made a quick decision that would change everything. "No Vexar here." Must have been a false reading. The rescue team made their way down. Ethan signaled for Nova to hide, and to his surprise, the creature seemed to understand, disappearing into a crevice in the rock wall. Commander Brooks reached him first, scanner in hand. "Our readings indicated a Class A predator within 5 meters of you all night. How are you still alive?" "I think your equipment is malfunctioning," Ethan lied. "I was alone." Brooks looked skeptical, but ordered the team to escort Ethan back to the Horizon. As soon as they returned to the ship, Captain Harris called Ethan to the command center. "What happened down there, Gallagher?" Harris demanded. "I fell, got separated from the team," Ethan said. Dr. Wright stepped forward, holding up a data pad. "Your suit camera captured some footage before it malfunctioned. Care to explain this?" The screen showed a blurry image of Nova approaching Ethan in the ravine. "That's a Vexar," Captain Harris said coldly. "The same species that slaughtered the Epsilon colony." "With all due respect, Captain, I don't think it is," Ethan replied. "Or at least, it's not what we think the Vexar are." "It didn't attack you?" Dr. Wright asked. "No, it was injured. I helped it. It showed signs of high intelligence." Harris slammed his fist on the table. "This is a direct violation of first contact protocols, especially with a known hostile species." "But that's just it," Ethan argued. "I don't think they're inherently hostile. This one wasn't." "One specimen doesn't change years of documentation," Brooks said. "What documentation?" Ethan challenged. "All we have are aftermath reports. Has anyone ever actually studied a living Vexar?" The room fell silent. "I want to go back down," Ethan said. "There's something we're missing about them." "Absolutely not," Harris said. "We're reporting this to command and quarantining the planet until further notice." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Nova, about the intelligence in those eyes. He pulled up his personal files, research from his previous posting where he'd worked with species initially classified as dangerous that later became valuable allies. His door slid open, revealing Olivia Martinez. "I reviewed your suit's biometric data," she whispered. "Your fear response dropped after initial contact with the Vexar. You genuinely weren't afraid." "Because it wasn't threatening me," Ethan replied. Olivia glanced down the corridor. "They're sending an extermination team tomorrow. Military, not scientific." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What? They can't do that without proper study." "They can, and they are." But Olivia handed him a key card. "Shuttle Bay 4 has a maintenance window from 200 to 2:30. Security cameras will be offline. Ethan stared at the card. Why help me? Because I've seen military containment before, she said grimly. If you're right about these creatures, I can't have that on my conscience. As Olivia left, Ethan made his decision. He would risk everything to return to Nova before the military arrived. Ethan's small shuttle touched down in darkness, guided only by the faint glow of the planet's 3 moons. He had programmed it to land near the ravine where he had met Nova, hoping the Vexar might still be nearby. He stepped onto the purple soil, scanning the area with his modified handheld device. Olivia had helped him adjust it to detect the unique biological signature of the Vexar without sending alerts to the ship's main systems. Nova? He called softly into the night. Are you here? A slight movement caught his eye as something shifted among the crystal formations. Nova emerged slowly, its body illuminated by bioluminescent patterns that pulsed along its scales. The medical patch Ethan had provided was gone, and the wound appeared nearly healed. You came back, Ethan said, then laughed at himself. As if you understand me. To his shock, Nova made a sound that sounded remarkably like back. Ethan froze. Did you just try to speak? Nova's head tendrils waved, and it touched its throat area. Ethan. Back. You're mimicking me, Ethan whispered in amazement. He pointed to himself. Ethan. Nova pointed one limb at Ethan. Ethan, then pointed to itself and made the crystal chiming sound again. Nova, Ethan said, using his chosen name for the creature. The Vexar seemed to accept this, repeating, Nova. Ethan pulled out his datapad. I don't have much time. They're sending soldiers to hunt your kind. I need to understand why everyone thinks you're dangerous. Nova's eyes dimmed, and it made a low humming sound. It reached out one limb and touched Ethan's datapad, then pointed to the ground. Ethan set the pad down. Nova used a claw to draw in the soil. Simple but clear images of ships, weapons, and fallen Vexar. They attacked you first? Ethan asked. Nova nodded, a gesture it must have learned from observing humans. It drew more, Vexar avoiding ships, then ships pursuing them. You tried to stay away, but they hunted you, Ethan translated. Nova touched its head, then reached slowly toward Ethan's temple. Ethan hesitated but then nodded. Okay. When Nova's limb touched his skin, Ethan gasped as images flooded his mind. Memories, but not his own. He saw through Nova's eyes. Peaceful Vexar communities living in crystal caves, communicating through light and sound. Then human ships arriving, scientists taking samples, military forces following. The memories showed Vexar being captured, dissected while still alive. Their natural defensive abilities, the very traits that had earned them the reputation as lethal predators, were being studied for weapons development. When the connection broke, Ethan stumbled backward, overwhelmed. They're experimenting on your people, he said hoarsely. You're not mindless killers. You're defending yourselves. Nova made a sad chiming sound. Suddenly, Ethan's scanner beeped. Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. They're coming, he said urgently. The military. Sooner than I expected. Nova's body tensed, light patterns flashing in what Ethan now recognized as alarm. We need to warn your people, Ethan said. Can you take me to them? Nova seemed to consider this, its 4 eyes studying Ethan intently. Then it made a decision, gesturing for Ethan to follow. They moved quickly through the strange forest, Nova occasionally stopping to touch crystal formations that lit up in response. Ethan realized they were some kind of communication network. After an hour of travel, they reached a mountainside that appeared solid at first glance. Nova pressed its limbs against specific points, and a hidden entrance appeared. Inside was a vast cavern filled with glowing crystals and dozens of Vexar of different sizes. When they saw Ethan, many reacted defensively, their bodies shifting to combat forms. Nova made a series of complex sounds and light patterns. The others gradually relaxed, though they still watched Ethan warily. One larger Vexar approached. Its scales bore intricate patterns that suggested age or status. Elder, Nova explained simply to Ethan. The elder studied Ethan, then extended a limb slowly. Ethan understood and reached out his hand. When they touched, Ethan felt another mental connection forming, deeper and clearer than with Nova. In his mind, he heard actual words. Why would one human help those it was taught to fear? Ethan's mind reeled from the elder's direct communication. He had expected basic concepts, not perfect English. "You speak our language?" Ethan asked aloud, though he understood the connection was mental. "We learn quickly," came the elder's reply in his mind. "Many of us have been studied by your kind." The cavern spread out before Ethan, revealing a complex society. Young Vexar huddled near adults. Some tended to crystal gardens that pulsed with light. Others worked with tools fashioned from the planet's natural materials. "I was taught you were mindless predators," Ethan admitted, "but everything I've seen proves that wrong." The elder released Ethan's hand, breaking their mental connection. It made a series of sounds to the gathered Vexar, who responded with light patterns across their bodies. Nova touched Ethan's shoulder. "Show truth. Help them understand." Above them, a distant rumble sounded. The military ships were landing. "We don't have much time," Ethan said urgently. "The soldiers coming won't ask questions. They've been ordered to eliminate any Vexar they find." The elder gestured, and 3 Vexar approached with a crystal device. They offered it to Ethan. "What is this?" he asked. Nova explained. "Records. Truth of first contact. Your people attacked." Ethan took the device, examining its intricate structure. "This contains evidence." "Yes," Nova confirmed. "Memory crystal. Compatible with human technology." The ground shook as something heavy landed nearby. The Vexar children made fearful sounds, their bodies glowing with distress patterns. "They're getting closer," Ethan warned. The elder approached a wall and pressed against specific crystals. A hidden passage opened, revealing a tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. "Evacuate," the elder instructed the community. "Nova, take our friend to the sacred pool. He must understand fully." As the Vexar began moving toward the escape route, Nova led Ethan down a different passage. They descended through crystal corridors that lit up as they passed. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked. "Place of knowing," Nova replied. "We'll show why we feared, why we hunted." They entered a chamber where a pool of luminescent liquid shimmered. Crystalline growths surrounded it, forming a natural amphitheater. "What is this place?" "Memory pool," Nova explained. "All Vexars share experiences here, become part of collective knowledge." Nova gestured toward the liquid. "Look." Ethan knelt by the pool's edge. The surface rippled, showing images of the first human ships arriving decades ago. He watched as peaceful contact turned violent when researchers discovered the Vexar's unique biology. The liquid showed humans harvesting Vexar tissue, studying their defensive adaptations, the Vexar's natural ability to generate bioelectric energy, and their crystalline growths that could focus it into defensive weapons had made them targets. "Your people wanted our bodies as weapons," Nova said simply. "We defended, became monsters in your stories." The images shifted to show Vexar communities in hiding, developing new defenses, teaching their young to fear humans. Suddenly, the chamber shook as an explosion sounded from above. "They're attacking the main cavern," Ethan said, rising quickly. Nova's body flashed with urgent patterns. "Must return. Protect others." They rushed back through the tunnels. When they reached the main cavern, they found chaos. Military personnel in combat suits had breached the entrance. They were firing at fleeing Vexar, who responded with defensive energy discharges. Ethan spotted Commander Brooks directing the attack. Nearby stood a man in a white lab coat rather than military gear, Dr. Gregory Walsh, Chief of Weapons Research for the fleet. "They're not here for containment," Ethan realized with horror. "They're here for specimens." As if confirming his suspicion, he heard Walsh shout, I want at least 5 intact for the lab. Use the stun settings. Nova's body began to glow brightly, ready to defend its people. But Ethan grabbed its limb. Wait, I have an idea. Ethan pulled Nova behind a large crystal formation as troops moved through the cavern. He noticed several young Vexar trapped against the far wall, their fear evident in their rapidly pulsing light patterns. I need to stop this, Ethan whispered. Do you trust me? Nova's 4 eyes studied him intently before it nodded. Trust Ethan. Ethan removed his expedition jacket and handed Nova the memory crystal. Keep this safe. It's our evidence. He stepped out with his hands raised. Commander Brooks, Dr. Walsh, stop firing. The soldiers turned their weapons toward him. Brooks signaled for them to hold fire. Gallagher, what are you doing here? She looked furious. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, his thin face showing more curiosity than anger. Fascinating. You've been with them, and they haven't killed you. Because they don't want to kill anyone, Ethan said firmly. They're defending themselves. They're intelligent beings with a civilization, not animals for your lab. Walsh smiled coldly. Their biological adaptations could revolutionize our weapons systems. The greater good outweighs your ethical concerns. This isn't about ethics, Ethan argued. You've completely misunderstood what they are. As they talked, Ethan noticed Olivia slipping in through the cavern entrance. She had followed him down. Their eyes met briefly, and she nodded slightly, moving toward a computer terminal the soldiers had set up. Brooks stepped closer to Ethan. You've violated direct orders and interfered with a military operation. That's treason, Gallagher. And what you're doing is genocide. Ethan countered. These beings can communicate. They have families, culture, technology. Walsh laughed. Next you'll tell me they have art and music. A soft melody suddenly filled the cavern, crystalline tones that resonated from the walls themselves. The elder had emerged, touching various crystals that vibrated with sound. The soldiers hesitated, lowering their weapons slightly as the beautiful, complex music washed over them. Walsh recovered first. Interesting behavioral display. Secure that specimen. 2 soldiers moved toward the elder. Nova burst from hiding, its body glowing intensely. No, Ethan shouted, lunging forward. A soldier fired. The energy blast struck Ethan in the shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground. Nova rushed to his side, making distressed chiming sounds. The cavern fell silent. Even Brooks looked shocked. You fired on a human scientist. She snapped at the soldier. Ma'am, he was protecting the hostile. Ethan struggled to sit up, grimacing in pain. Nova gently supported him with 2 of its limbs. The sight of their interaction, the obvious concern the Vexar showed, caused several soldiers to exchange uncertain glances. Look at them, Ethan said, his voice strained. Does this look like a mindless predator to you? Olivia chose that moment to activate the terminal she'd reached. Footage began playing on all the soldiers' helmet displays, the memory crystal's contents that she had somehow accessed. Images showed the first human experiments on captured Vexar, their peaceful settlements being destroyed, their defensive actions against unprovoked attacks. What is this? Brooks demanded. The truth, Olivia replied, stepping forward. I've transmitted it to the Horizon and to Fleet Command. Everyone will know what really happened. Walsh's face contorted with rage. Shut that off immediately. This is classified research. It's evidence of war crimes, Ethan said, louder now. The Vexar were never the aggressors. Look around you. They could have killed me at any time. Instead, they shared their knowledge, their history. Nova helped Ethan to his feet. Other Vexar emerged from hiding, not attacking but standing protectively near their young. The elder approached slowly, its body glowing with a calm, steady light. It extended a limb toward Brooks. It wants to communicate with you, Ethan explained, the same way it did with me. Brooks hesitated, her weapon still raised. Commander, Olivia said quietly, if you're right about them being mindless killers, What do you have to fear from touching one? After a long moment, Brooks lowered her weapon and slowly reached out her hand. When their contact was made, her eyes widened in shock. "They're talking to me," she whispered. "I can hear them in my mind." Commander Brooks stood motionless, her hand still connected to the elder Vexar. The soldiers watched nervously, weapons lowered but ready. "What are they saying?" Dr. Walsh demanded, his voice tight with frustration. Brooks finally broke the connection, her face pale. They'd been on this planet for over 300 years. They came here to escape conflict in another system. She looked at Walsh with disgust. "They were peaceful until we arrived 20 years ago." "Lies," Walsh spat. "They're manipulating your mind." "No," Brooks said firmly. "They showed me memories, not just theirs, but ours. The first research team that found them. Your team, Walsh." The soldiers began murmuring among themselves. Ethan, still supported by Nova, watched as doubts spread through their ranks. "They killed the Epsilon colony," Walsh shouted. "After you took their children for experiments," Brooks replied. She turned to her second in command. "Lieutenant Kelly, place Dr. Walsh under arrest." "On what charges?" Walsh snarled. "Violating the Sentient Species Protection Act. For starters," Brooks said coldly. "The footage shows you were aware of their intelligence from the beginning." As two soldiers moved to restrain Walsh, he pulled out a small device from his coat pocket. "Stay back. This is a remote detonator. I've placed charges throughout this mountain system." Everyone froze. The Vexar's light patterns flickered with alarm. "You came prepared to destroy evidence," Ethan realized aloud. "I came prepared to collect specimens and eliminate the rest," Walsh corrected. "Standard containment protocol for dangerous species." Nova's body began to glow more intensely. Ethan felt a strange tingling sensation where Nova touched him. "What are your demands, Walsh?" Brooks asked, trying to defuse the situation. "I want 3 adult specimens and transport off this planet," Walsh said. "The research continues, with or without your approval." The elder made a series of crystalline sounds. Other Vexar responded, their bodies glowing in synchronized patterns. "What are they doing?" Kelly whispered. "Communicating," Ethan explained. "They're making a decision." Walsh raised the detonator higher. "Enough. I want those specimens now or I'll bring this whole mountain down." What happened next occurred so quickly that Ethan barely processed it. Nova suddenly enveloped him in 4 of its limbs, its body glowing blindingly bright. Simultaneously, every crystal in the cavern pulsed with energy. A focused beam of energy shot from the elder toward Walsh, striking not him, but the detonator. The device shattered, its pieces falling harmlessly to the ground. Walsh lunged for a soldier's weapon. Brooks moved faster, tackling him to the ground. "It's over, Walsh," she said as Kelly helped restrain him. Ethan turned to Nova, who was still holding him. "You protected me." "Friends protect," Nova replied simply. Olivia approached them, looking at her datapad. The transmission to Fleet Command went through. "They're sending a diplomatic team." Brooks secured Walsh and addressed the room. "All units stand down. We're reclassifying this operation as a first contact scenario." Some soldiers looked relieved, others confused. Brooks continued, "Lieutenant Kelly, establish a perimeter outside the cavern. No one enters without my authorization." As the military personnel reorganized, Ethan turned to the elder. "What happens now?" The elder extended its limb again. When Ethan touched it, he heard, "Now we begin again." With truth. The next few hours brought remarkable changes. Medical teams arrived to treat Ethan's injury and check on any wounded Vexar. Brooks established communication with Fleet Command, who had received the memory crystal footage and were scrambling to respond. Dr. Carl Bennett, the Horizon's chief scientist, arrived with a proper first contact team. He stared in wonder at the Vexar community. "All these years," he murmured, "we've been so wrong about them." "Not everyone," Ethan said, looking at Walsh being led away in restraints. "Some knew exactly what they were doing. The Elder gathered the Vexar leaders while Bennett assembled the human delegation. They met in the center of the cavern, surrounded by glowing crystals. Bennett spoke first. "On behalf of humanity, I extend our deepest apologies for the actions taken against your people." The Elder responded with a series of sounds, which Nova translated. "Apologies are start. Actions must follow." "We're prepared to establish formal diplomatic relations," Bennett offered, "and to acknowledge your sovereign rights to this planet." The Elder touched a nearby crystal, which projected images of both species working together. "They're showing us possibilities," Ethan explained. "They want cooperation, not just coexistence." Brooks stepped forward. "What can we offer in reparation?" 6 months after the events in the Crystal Caverns, Ethan stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Unity, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. Beside him, Nova's scales reflected the blue-green planet's light. "Nervous?" Ethan asked. Nova's tendrils rippled gently. "Yes. First Vexar on Earth. Big responsibility." The past months had transformed galactic politics. The footage from the memory crystals had spread throughout human space, forcing a complete reassessment of Vexar relations. Dr. Walsh and several military officials faced trial for their actions. Commander Brooks had been promoted to head the new Xenological Protection Division. "Ambassador Gallagher, please report to the bridge," came the announcement. "We're beginning final approach procedures." Ethan smiled at the title. He hadn't sought the position, but when both humans and Vexar had nominated him, he couldn't refuse. "Ready, Ambassador Nova?" he asked. Nova made the chiming sound that Ethan now recognized as laughter. Still strange to hear title. They walked together to the bridge, drawing curious glances from the crew. Most humans had only seen Vexar in recordings, and Nova's impressive form still inspired awe, and in some, lingering fear. Captain Rivera greeted them. "We'll be docking at the International Space Station in 30 minutes. The Earth delegation is already aboard." "Thank you, Captain," Ethan said. "Any word from the other ships?" "The Vexar vessel is maintaining position behind us, as agreed. Their Elder is ready for the ceremony." The plan was carefully structured. The first official meeting between Earth's leaders and the Vexar would take place in neutral space before any visitors reached the planet's surface. When they docked, Ethan and Nova were the first to enter the station. A small group waited in the reception area, including Olivia, now the chief science officer for the diplomatic mission. "They're ready for you in the main chamber," she said, smiling warmly at both of them. The station's largest module had been converted for the historic meeting. Representatives from Earth's nations sat on one side, looking tense but determined. The Elder and 5 other Vexar were already seated opposite them, their crystalline growths glittering under the lights. Ethan and Nova took their positions in the center. As the human Vexar translation team, they would facilitate this first formal dialogue. The UN Secretary-General stood first. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome the Vexar people to Earth space. We gather today to formally apologize for past wrongs and to establish a new relationship based on mutual respect and understanding." When she finished speaking, Ethan translated her words into the complex combination of sounds and light patterns the Vexar used. Then Nova translated the Elder's response for the humans. "We accept your welcome and your apology. Today marks the end of hiding and the beginning of sharing." The formal proceedings continued with the signing of the First Contact Accord, acknowledging the Vexar as a sovereign species with all rights under galactic law. When the ceremony ended, Ethan and Nova moved to the observation window overlooking Earth. "Your world is beautiful," Nova said. "Soon you'll see it up close," Ethan replied. "The rainforests remind me of your crystal gardens, but green instead of purple." Nova's tendrils moved thoughtfully, young ones most excited, human children too. That had been the most surprising development. A cultural exchange program where young Vexar and human children would learn together. Initial tests had shown that children adapted quickly to each other, without the fear that clouded adult interactions. "Did you ever imagine this?" Ethan asked. "When you first found me in that ravine." "No," Nova admitted. "Expected to die. Found friend instead." Olivia joined them at the window. "The transport is ready whenever you are. You'll be the first Vexar to set foot on Earth." Nova's body glowed with subtle patterns of excitement and apprehension. "Ready." As they walked toward the shuttle bay, Ethan reflected on how far they had come. One moment of compassion instead of fear had changed the course of two species. The shuttle doors opened, revealing Earth below. Nova stood at the threshold, its crystalline form catching the sunlight. "One step," Ethan said encouragingly. Nova stepped forward into the shuttle. One step for Vexar. Many steps together. As the shuttle descended toward Earth, carrying the unlikely friends, the scene below them shifted from darkness to light as they crossed into dawn. It seemed fitting. A new day for both their peoples, built on understanding rather than fear, on connection rather than conflict.